Have you ever set a goal you were completely sure about, like genuinely convinced this time was different, and then watched yourself quietly give up on it 2 weeks later? Not dramatically, not with a big breakdown. Just slowly, you stopped showing up. And the worst part isn't even the failure. It's the story you tell yourself afterward. That you're lazy, that you lack discipline, that some people just have it and you don't. What if that story is completely wrong? What if the problem was never your willpower, your motivation, or your character, but something so hidden, so automatic, that you've been fighting the wrong battle your entire life? Here's what most people don't realize. The things we do consistently, the habits that stick, the identities we build, the behaviors we can't seem to shake, they're not driven by logic. They're not even driven by desire, not really. They're driven by belief. Specifically, by the stories we've accepted as true about who we are, what we're capable of, and what the world will allow for someone like us. And here's where things get interesting. Those beliefs were probably installed in you before you were old enough to question them. Think about that for a second. The voice that says you're not a morning person, that you're bad with money, that you'll always struggle with your weight. Where did that voice come from? Did you decide that? Or did someone, at some point, hand you a script and you've been reading from it ever since? Nir Eyal, the author behind Indistractable, went deep into this question. And what he found cuts right through the self-help noise that tells you to just believe in yourself harder. Because belief isn't something you generate through positive thinking. Belief is a conclusion your brain has drawn from evidence. And if you want to change what you believe, you have to change the evidence your brain is working with. This changes everything. Because it means transformation isn't about motivation. It's about identity. And identity isn't fixed. It's a story you're constantly writing whether you know it or not. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine two people trying to quit smoking. The first person is asked if they want a cigarette. They say, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second person is asked the same thing. They say, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Same behavior, completely different inner world. The first person is resisting. The second person is just being themselves. Who do you think is more likely to succeed 5 years from now? The surprising part is that the gap between those two people isn't talent. It isn't even habit. It's a one-sentence identity shift that completely rewired how they relate to the behavior. Most of us spend our lives resisting. We resist eating badly. We resist procrastination. We resist distraction. We resist all the things we don't want to be. And resistance is exhausting. It requires constant energy. It's a war you fight every single day. But identity? Identity is automatic. When your behavior lines up with who you believe you are, there's no battle. You just do the thing. So the real question becomes, how do you actually change a belief that's been running in the background for years? And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because the answer isn't a morning routine. It's not a vision board. What actually shifts deep-seated belief is something much simpler and much harder. Repeated, small acts of evidence. Your brain is a scientist. It updates its model of you based on data. Every time you do what you said you would do, even in the tiniest way, you're submitting a piece of evidence that says, "This is who I am." And every time you break a promise to yourself, even a small one, you're submitting the opposite. This is why starting small isn't a hack. It's actually how the whole system works. But here's the part that most people miss entirely. You don't just change your identity by acting differently. You also have to consciously reject the old narrative. Because the old story has momentum. It has years of reinforcement. It has the comfort of familiarity. And your brain loves familiar, even when familiar is painful. This means at some point, you have to look at the story you've been told, or told yourself, and say, "That was someone else's conclusion about me, and I'm done living inside it." That's not toxic positivity. That's not affirmations in the mirror. That's a decision. A real, grounded, eyes-open decision to stop treating an old belief like it's a fact and start treating it like what it actually is, a hypothesis. One that can be tested. One that can be revised. What most people don't realize is that confidence doesn't come first. Confidence is the residue of action. You don't wait until you feel like a writer to start writing. You write, badly, consistently, and the identity follows. You don't wait until you feel disciplined to build a routine. You build the routine imperfectly, and discipline is what you become. The emotional shift here is massive. Because if confidence follows action, not the other way around, then you're never actually stuck. You're just waiting for permission that was never going to come from the outside. Think back to every time you've said, "I'll start when I feel ready." That feeling of readiness? It was never going to arrive on its own. It was always going to be built, brick by brick, through doing, through showing up, through proving to yourself, with actual evidence, that you are the person you want to become. Here's the thing about belief. It's not a light switch. It's a dimmer. You don't go from, "I'm not a runner," to, "I'm a runner," overnight. But every single morning you lace up your shoes, that dimmer turns up just slightly. And one day, without a dramatic announcement, you realize the light is on. You realize you've been doing the thing. You realize you've become the person. And the old story, the one about being lazy or undisciplined or just not the type, it feels like it was about someone else. That's the journey this idea points to. Not motivation, not hustle, not hacking your way into a better life. It's the slow, quiet, deliberate act of collecting evidence for a new version of yourself. One rep at a time. One kept promise at a time. One moment of showing up when you didn't feel like it. Remember that feeling at the beginning, the one where you'd watched yourself give up again and couldn't figure out why? That wasn't a character flaw. That was a belief problem. And belief, unlike character, can be changed. Intentionally, incrementally. Starting today, you are not the conclusions others drew about you. You are the story you choose to keep writing. If this shifted something for you, hit like, subscribe to 1% Reader, and drop a comment telling me one belief you're ready to stop treating as fact. I read every single one.